The cheaters fall. Karma comes full circle. Maria and Greg seemed like the perfect couple. At 32, Maria was the kind of woman who effortlessly drew people in with her warmth and charisma. As a high school art teacher, she loved her job, not for the paycheck, but for the joy it brought her. She believed in nurturing creativity, whether it was in her students, her marriage, or her life. Greg, 35, was a dreamer, always chasing the next big thing. When they met 7 years ago at a friend's barbecue, Maria had been captivated by his sharp wit and quiet confidence. He was a struggling writer then, full of ambition and charm, and Maria admired his passion for storytelling. That evening, they talked for hours, their connection instantaneous and electric. 2 years later, they married in Maria's parents' backyard, a small, intimate ceremony filled with love. Money was tight, but neither cared. They had each other, and that felt like enough. For years, Maria carried the weight of their financial struggles. She picked up extra tutoring gigs, worked late on lesson plans, and even sold her handmade pottery on the side. Greg, at first, seemed grateful. He'd leave sweet notes in her lunch bag or surprise her with chai tea after a long day. But as time wore on, Greg's writing dreams seemed further out of reach. His efforts dwindled, replaced by excuses and procrastination. Maria never complained, even as she watched him spend more hours researching obscure topics than contributing to their household. Then everything changed. Greg's old college friend, now a magazine editor, offered him a lucrative position as a senior content strategist. It wasn't the creative writing career Greg had once envisioned, but the salary was life-changing. Suddenly, they could afford the things they had only dreamed of. Fancy dinners, spontaneous vacations, a wardrobe upgrade. Maria finally felt like they were moving forward. But with Greg's new success came a shift in his behavior. At first, it was small things, working late nights, taking hushed phone calls, and spending more time networking. Maria brushed it off. After all, Greg's job was demanding, and his promotion meant more responsibility. But soon, the signs became harder to ignore. Greg started guarding his phone like it was a state secret. Notifications were silenced, and he kept the screen face down whenever they were together. He even took it with him to the bathroom. Maria's unease grew. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Greg's phone buzzed repeatedly. He glanced at it, muttered something about work, and walked into the bedroom to take the call. Through the closed door, Maria could hear his hushed tone, but not the words. When he returned, he brushed it off. Maria smiled and let it go, but the nagging feeling in her gut lingered. The final straw came one quiet evening. Greg had gone upstairs to shower after dinner, leaving his phone on the armrest of the couch. Maria stared at it, her mind racing. She hated the idea of invading his privacy. It wasn't who she was. But doubt gnawed at her, louder than her conscience. What if she was wrong? What if this was all a misunderstanding? Yet the larger question loomed. What if I'm not wrong? Her hands trembled as she picked up the phone. It was unlocked, as though Greg had forgotten in his rush. Maria's stomach churned as she opened the Messages app. The name at the top of the thread stopped her cold. Angela, her best friend since college. Last night was incredible. I can still smell your cologne on my sheets, Angela had written. Greg's reply was just as damning. I can't stop thinking about you. Maria's vision blurred as she scrolled further, finding pictures of Angela posed provocatively in lingerie. One photo showed Angela lying on her bed with the caption, "Counting down until next time." Angela, the woman Maria had trusted with her secrets, her struggles, her life. The woman who had sat across from her countless times, listening to her talk about Greg's long hours and their growing distance. For a moment, Maria wanted to storm upstairs and confront him, but a quiet, determined voice in her head stopped her. Wait, don't let them see you break. Think this through. That night, Maria began gathering evidence, screenshots of texts, photos, and voice notes, all saved securely to a hidden folder. She backed them up and emailed them to herself. Greg and Angela had no idea what was coming. Maria spent the next week acting as though nothing had changed. She smiled at Greg, cooked his favorite meals, and even laughed at his jokes. To Greg, everything seemed normal. If anything, Maria seemed even more attentive. But behind the scenes, Maria was carefully plotting her revenge. She dug through their shared computer, printing out copies of Greg's financial records and tax filings. He had always been careless about leaving sensitive documents lying around, and Maria knew they would come in handy. She also began paying closer attention to Greg's excuses. He claimed he had to work late on Thursdays, but his office phone logs showed no outgoing calls after 6 p.m. He said he was meeting co-workers for drinks, but his credit card statements told a different story. Hotel bar charges across town. Piece by piece, Maria built her case. Angela wasn't spared. Maria began compiling a dossier on her as well. Over the years, Angela had let slip details about her workplace, fake expense reports, personal errands on company time, and even bragging about calling in sick to spend a day at the spa. Maria had laughed it off then, but now she saw an opportunity. One evening, Maria invited Angela over for wine. She set the stage perfectly, candles flickering, a charcuterie board arranged just so, and 2 glasses of wine waiting on the coffee table. Angela arrived, her usual confidence on display. She tossed her hair over her shoulder, laughing about her stressful week at work. Maria nodded along, her smile easy and relaxed. "It's a good thing you have such a supportive network," she said, letting the words hang just long enough to catch Angela's attention. Angela's laugh faltered, but she quickly recovered. "Yeah, I guess so." Her smile remained, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. The sound of the front door opening broke the moment. Maria's heart quickened as Greg walked in, loosening his tie. He froze when he saw Angela sitting on the couch. "Oh, hey," Angela said, her voice a little too bright. Maria smiled and handed Greg a glass of wine. "We were just catching up," she said smoothly. Greg's discomfort was palpable. His gaze flicked between Maria and Angela, his jaw tightening. "I didn't know you were stopping by tonight," he said to Angela. Maria leaned back, sipping her wine. "I thought it would be nice for us all to connect." The rest of the evening was a minefield of small talk, with Maria skillfully steering the conversation. By the time Angela left, her composure had cracked, and Greg's nerves were frayed. Maria smiled to herself. The seeds of doubt had been sown, and now all she had to do was wait for them to bloom. That evening, as Greg snored beside her, Maria finalized her dossier on Angela and Greg. She sent the incriminating emails about Angela's workplace misconduct to her HR department anonymously. By midweek, Maria had confirmation that Angela had been fired for unprofessional conduct. Maria felt no guilt. Angela's arrogance had made her an easy target, and Maria was more than happy to exploit it. The first domino had fallen, and it was Greg's turn next. Greg's downfall began with a notification from the IRS early one morning. Maria watched him from across the room as he read the email. Tax audit notification blinked at the top of the screen. His brow furrowed as he opened the email, his grip tightening on the mouse as he scanned the language outlining discrepancies in his filings. "What the hell?" Greg muttered, his voice low. Maria folded laundry nearby, her expression neutral. Everything okay? Greg forced a smile, though his face was pale. Yeah, just work stuff. Later that day, Greg tried to book a surprise weekend trip for Angela, a quick getaway to help them decompress. But his card kept getting declined. Confused, he pulled out his phone and checked his banking app. An error message popped up. Account unavailable. Please contact your financial institution. Greg dialed the bank. Pacing the living room as Maria chopped vegetables in the kitchen, her ears perked. Hi, yes, I'm having trouble accessing my accounts, Greg said, his tone clipped. After verifying his details, the representative's voice turned formal. Your accounts have been frozen due to an ongoing federal investigation. You'll need to contact the IRS for further details. Greg's voice rose. What kind of investigation? This has to be a mistake. I'm sorry, sir, but we cannot provide additional information. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Greg hung up abruptly, his face ashen. Maria glanced at him from the kitchen, her tone light. Everything okay? It's fine, Greg muttered, though his jaw tightened as he paced the room. The following week, Greg was summoned to his boss's office for an urgent meeting. He walked in, adjusting his tie, his confidence beginning to fray. Mr. Talbot sat behind his desk, flanked by a stern-looking HR representative. Greg, have a seat, Talbot said, gesturing to the chair. Greg complied, his palms damp. What's this about? Talbot folded his hands, his expression grim. Greg, we've been made aware of troubling information. The IRS audit is one thing, but during our review, we discovered personal conduct issues, specifically your affair with Angela, who works for one of our client companies. This is a conflict of interest. Greg's face drained of color. You had me investigated? We had to ensure the integrity of our team, Talbot replied. Effective immediately, you're on unpaid leave until the investigation is resolved. Greg stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. This is ridiculous. I've done nothing wrong. Talbot's tone was calm but firm. Your conduct has put the company in jeopardy. Until this is resolved, you're off the team. Greg stormed out, his mind spinning. His finances were frozen, his job was in limbo, and now his affair with Angela was exposed. His carefully constructed life was crumbling. Maria's plan reached its crescendo at a family dinner she arranged later that week. Greg's parents, siblings, and a few close friends gathered around the table, enjoying the elaborate meal Maria had prepared. Angela arrived late, her usual confidence replaced with a strained smile. Maria greeted her warmly, masking her satisfaction as Angela nervously sipped her wine. As the meal wound down, Maria stood and clinked her glass, drawing everyone's attention. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, she began, her tone steady and warm. Family and friends are the most important things in life. Greg smiled nervously, while Angela shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Maria turned to Greg, her voice steady but cutting. Greg, there's something I need to say. I know about you and Angela, the texts, the hotel bar receipts, and the fraud. I know it all. Gasps rippled around the table. Angela's fork clattered onto her plate, her face pale. Maria, Greg stammered, this isn't the place. Maria cut him off. You've done enough. And you, she said, turning to Angela. I know you've been fired. You thought you could keep your mess a secret, but secrets have a way of coming out. Angela's mouth opened and closed as her composure shattered. Maria's gaze swept over the table, landing back on Greg. I want a divorce. You can keep your lies and whatever's left of your reputation. I'm done. With that, Maria picked up her purse and walked out, leaving the room in stunned silence. In the weeks that followed, Maria thrived. She filed for divorce, moved to a new city, and began building a life that was finally her own. Greg, meanwhile, faced the full weight of his actions. His accounts remained frozen, his job on hold indefinitely, and his reputation in ruins. Angela, once so smug and confident, found herself unemployed and ostracized after word of the affair spread. No one wanted to work with someone so reckless. Maria, for the first time in years, felt free.